also I think the visionary part of NCL, I would say that it lies in the fact that this coming of transformation was anticipated earlier. It was not reactionary, we were prepared for it, right. So, it was sort of understood that this is going to come in, and therefore, we should be filing patents. Some of the first US patents were filed in that decade, late 80s, early 90s, right. Before that, you can imagine, for the 3 decades of existence from the 50s to 80s, we were never filing patents outside India, they were all Indian patents, and we were not filing that many also, right. So, intellectual property protection was not in vogue in those first 30 years, and then it was realized that this is going to be very, very important, and so all that thinking started. GADA chemicals is, we all know about GADA chemicals, right. And in those days, GADA had started making the first engineering plastics in India through a completely indigenously developed technology. They also were filing patents, and they were developing this technology for sulphones, polysulphones. Okay. And they had a small pilot plant in Dombivli, and they started making this powder of polysulphones. And there is a solvent that is left in the polymer. It is a very high boiling solvent, okay, called sulfolane. And if you want to make any products out of that polymer, that powder that came out of the reactor, you had to remove sulfolane, okay. And it is a very high boiling solvent. You cannot remove it in standard reactors and the percentage in the polymer was less than 10%. So, it was a dry powder, but you could feel the sort of wettiness in it because of the sulfolane, and high, very smelly solvent. The only way to remove it was by a process called devolatilization. You melt the polymer in an extruder, you pump it in, the extruder is a pump, you pump the polymer, and at some part of the extruder you pull vacuum, and you essentially just boil off the solvent and collect it. There were, I do not think, any pilot scale devolatilizing extruders in this country, and we had one, okay. And I was in charge. So, Dr. Shivram introduced me to the GADA team and said they have this problem, can we help. So, I remember we had a fantastic period of time where the first devolatilization of polysulphones was done in the NCL extruder. We must have processed about a ton of material for them. Okay. And why to me this is interesting and important, I mean, I feel like playing a small part in a history, is that based on all the successes that we got in that extruder, they then bought a bigger scale identical extruder in their works in place called Panoli, where they were scaling up polysulphone manufacturing, right. The bigger reactors, larger amount of material being made, bigger extruders, devolatilizing and making polysulphones. That technology graduated to a point where they challenged a multinational, Solvay, okay, and Solvay, they challenged it to a point where Solvay thought that this was too risky to have another player entering the field. So, they bought out that part of the business from GADA. Okay. It was one of the largest technology sale to a multinational company. So, an indigenous technology, IP protected, fully developed in India, sold to a multinational. So, it was a reverse tech transfer that happened, a tech licensing that happened. Right. So, it was really history, and this has not happened many times in this country. This is a very unique piece, and I just feel happy that a tiny bit of it got started at NCL. We have great universities, we have good industry, right. What is missing is the gap in between. How do you take knowledge from labs It could be university labs, it could be NCL kind of labs, knowledge from there and taking it through that innovation journey, that de-risking journey, taking closer and closer to commercialization is the journey that NCL has always focused on and will continue to focus on, and that I think is a distinguishing feature of NCL. So, to me it is not one of the academic institutions, it is actually very distinct from an academic institution.